Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Right now, we're in the middle of a truly massive structural shift, and it's one that impacts literally every single organization on the planet. The whole way companies create, deliver, and capture value, it's entirely transformed from just a few short years ago. We are rapidly moving away from those old-school, one-off transactions into this continuous, incredibly dynamic flow of value.
Okay, let's dive into this, because it really all comes down to one core question. How will businesses actually make money in 2026? We're going to take an uninterrupted journey straight through the mechanics of modern value creation. We'll be looking at the hard data, the real-world case studies, and of course, the underlying tech that's driving this entire shift.
Section 1. Access over ownership. To understand exactly where we're going, we first have to look at how consumers actually prefer to pay today, and honestly, the difference is stark. The traditional buy and own paradigm was all about the one-time purchase, right? You buy a software disk, you install it, you own it, transaction over. But today, modern consumers prioritize flexibility and convenience way over physical ownership. They want continuous value delivered seamlessly, and they are more than willing to pay a recurring fee to get it.
But here's the thing. It's not just us consumers who love this setup. Companies absolutely thrive on it. Subscriptions offer them predictable, recurring revenue and a vastly higher customer lifetime value. Think about familiar examples like Netflix or Adobe Creative Cloud. When Adobe transitioned from selling those hugely expensive one-time licenses to a monthly subscription model, the recurring revenue just skyrocketed. By keeping users constantly engaged, these companies create this rapid improvement loop that completely locks in brand loyalty.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this evolution supercharges a classic business strategy, the razor and blades model. You know the drill. Gillette used to sell you a cheap razor just to lock you into buying their proprietary replacement blades forever. But in the digital age, this concept has evolved. In the digital economy, the razor is basically free. The blades, however, are addictive, recurring, and infinitely scalable.
A perfect modern example of this is the Amazon Kindle. The physical device itself, the razor in this scenario, is sold at a highly competitive price. Sometimes they're barely even breaking even on the hardware. Why do that? Because it creates a beautifully low barrier to entry for the consumer. The real profit engine, the blades, comes from those continuous, totally frictionless ebook purchases you make via the built-in Kindle store. It's brilliant.
While subscriptions changed how we buy, direct-to-consumer changed who we buy from. Section 2. Decentralizing the market.
Now, this diagram brilliantly illustrates just how complex it is to bypass traditional retail. Implementing a D2C, or direct-to-consumer model, requires aligning market validation, overhauling your decision-making structures, and building deep, direct customer relationships from scratch. And a quick warning, going direct like this almost always causes immense friction with legacy retail partners. It requires some incredibly careful leadership to navigate that transition without burning bridges.
So, to survive in this landscape, direct brands rely heavily on the build, measure, learn loop. Instead of spending years perfecting a product in absolute secrecy, companies push out a minimum viable product, gather immediate feedback from real users, and iterate rapidly. For you, the consumer, this means the products you use are adapting to your exact needs faster than ever before. It's a real game changer.
And this decentralization of products isn't just happening in retail either. Just take a look at this European Banking Authority report. It shows how alternative distribution methods, like white labeling, which is basically where one company produces a service that others simply rebrand as their own, have deeply penetrated even the most highly regulated traditional institutional markets. Which naturally segues into what is arguably the ultimate shift in distribution and cutting out the middleman, fractional ownership. By utilizing blockchain technology, we can now take a highly illiquid real-world asset, think a massive commercial office building or a piece of fine art, and divide its ownership into programmable digital tokens. This completely democratizes access to high-value assets that were historically restricted only to the ultra-wealthy.
Let's move to and see how this builds in practice. First, the physical asset is legally linked to digital tokens, usually through something like a special purpose vehicle or a trust. Second, those tokens are issued on a blockchain ledger, creating a permanent, tamper-resistant record of who owns what. And finally, smart contracts step in to act as automated property managers, seamlessly distributing things like rental income instantly to thousands of token holders all over the globe. The structural advantages here are, quite frankly, massive. Think about it. Selling a $50 million building the traditional way is a slow, agonizing, and expensive process completely loaded with intermediaries. But once it's tokenized, That value is unlocked. Investors can buy or sell their specific fractions on secondary markets with 24/7 liquidity. They get to enjoy the kind of speed and flexibility usually reserved entirely for the stock market.
However, we have to be clear here. Creating these institutional-grade digital markets is incredibly complex. This emerging industry faces some very unique operational risks. We're talking about smart contract coding bugs that could potentially compromise user funds. There are also deep challenges in real-time asset valuation, because remember, the building exists off-chain in the real world, but the token is trading on-chain. And all of this sits alongside the massive hurdle of enforcing global regulatory compliance, like KYC and AML laws.
So how do they solve this? Well, the industry relies on highly specialized infrastructure. Systems like Chainlink provide decentralized oracles, which are basically secure data bridges to securely pull off-chain real estate appraisals directly onto the blockchain. Furthermore, automated proof-of-reserve systems constantly audit traditional bank vaults to prove cryptographically that every single digital token is genuinely backed by the physical asset it represents. It's all about building absolute trust.
Section 3. Engines of digital growth.
So the crucial point is, how do these modern, decentralized, and digital-first businesses scale up so efficiently? They do it through product-led growth, or PLG for short. The whole playbook for growth strategy has fundamentally shifted here. Instead of relying on massive, super expensive traditional sales teams to acquire customers, companies are taking that investment and shifting it directly into product development. The product itself becomes the main engine for acquiring, retaining, and upselling the user.
Treating your product as your absolute best salesperson leads to vastly lower customer acquisition costs. Plus, users experience an incredibly fast time to value. They can just jump right in, try the product, and reach their aha moment immediately, without having to sit through a 30-minute scheduled sales demo. This allows companies to build highly efficient expansion loops naturally right into the user interface.
Now, a key metric tracked obsessively in this model is the viral coefficient. This measures exactly how many new users each existing user brings in. If your product has a viral coefficient above 1, it is mathematically compounding entirely on its own. It's basically the digital equivalent of a self-filling coffee cup. But even if it's below 1, any virality at all significantly drives down the cost of acquiring your next customer.
But hey, this doesn't mean sales teams are obsolete. Not at all. Their role has just evolved. Instead of endless cold calling, they utilize products qualified leads, or PQLs. Because these platforms are tracking feature adoption sequences in the background, they know exactly when a user's actual behavior signals they're ready for an enterprise upgrade. This creates a unified source of truth where marketing, product, and sales are all entirely aligned.
And the ultimate accelerant tying this whole growth engine together? AI. We are rapidly moving past AI that just talks fluently and getting into reasoning models that actually think. Through AI as a service, platforms can implement incredibly deep personalization. Your onboarding sequence is no longer just a generic checklist. The AI adapts in real time based on your specific behavioral signals to actively guide you to your unique aha moment faster than ever before. So we've explored this continuous flow of value. Everything from the stickiness of modern subscriptions and D2C agility to the massive liquidity of tokenized fractional ownership, all being scaled effortlessly by product-led growth and AI. The landscape of 2026 is moving incredibly fast, so I want to leave you with this. As AI and blockchain entirely rewrite the rules of distribution and ownership, what will your business model look like tomorrow? Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer.